Good evening, and welcome to the GBM Agile Virtual Event. I'm Lance Kawaguchi, Chief Executive Officer of Cure Brain Cancer Foundation, and I'm delighted so many of you could join us tonight as we share more information about our $8 million commitment to bring GBM Agile to Australia. When I joined the foundation 14 months ago, the feedback I received from you, the community, was the importance of bringing treatments to Australia via GBM Agile. The foundation had seed funded this trial in 2013 with over $1 million, and we made a promise to bring this trial to Australia. I'm honored that we have now made this a reality. We went all in, with our largest single investment of $8 million to deliver on that promise. GBM Agile is a game changer in brain cancer research. It's an innovative clinical trial that accelerates the pace at which drugs and new therapies are tested for brain cancer and represents the quickest and most effective way to rapidly find a cure for GBM. It's been over 8 years in the making. It has taken the combined efforts of many people in our community, and I want to thank every single one of you for standing with us as we worked to make this game-changing initiative possible. We're moving quickly to get GBM Agile up and running. We've already sent off the first payment, and our partner, the global sponsor for the trial, the Global Coalition for Adaptive Research, is currently recruiting for a project manager to lead the rollout in Australia. I'm thrilled to share with you that real action for this trial is already happening, and we'll of course keep you updated on each additional step of the rollout as we continue. Tonight is also the beginning of our 3-year capital campaign that will focus on bringing our community together to help deliver the $8 million behind the commitment. This will mean building partnerships with like-minded institutions, corporates, and individuals, and I look forward to working together to deliver this commitment. I want to again thank our incredible team who have made this possible and our wonderful supporters, many of whom are here tonight. I'd like to extend a special welcome to our guest speakers, Professor Mark Rosenthal and Professor Wei Gang. Mark and Wei are highly respected brain cancer researchers and clinicians, and they bring a unique insight onto the program of innovation from the lab to the bedside. We also have a very special guest, Jessica Gitze, who was diagnosed with glioblastoma 3 years ago and has been determined to use her personal experience to help raise awareness and support for brain cancer research. Jess, Mark, and Wei, welcome. Some quick housekeeping. We'll hear from our guests later in the evening, followed by an opportunity for questions. Please post any questions you may have for myself, Mark, Wei, or Jess to the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to get through as many of your questions as we can. Without further ado, I would like to share with you a special video message from someone who wanted to be here tonight, but unfortunately had a pre-existing commitment. Here's a special message from our patron, Her Excellency the Honorable Margaret Beasley, AC QC, Governor of New South Wales.
Good evening, as we join together for this very special online event. Dennis and I, as joint patrons of the Cure Brain Cancer Foundation, would have participated with you in real time this evening, but we've been at a conference today at Bourke in our state's far west. Through this video message, we wanted to let you know that, together with you, we stand in support of the Foundation and its mission to unite the community, rapidly increase brain cancer survival, and improve the quality of life for people impacted by the disease. That is why we are delighted that the Cure Brain Cancer Foundation is bringing GBM Agile to Australia. This trial for glioblastoma, the most common and deadly primary brain cancer, accelerates the pace at which new treatments are tested for brain cancer and provides a highly efficient way to find better treatments. We commend the Foundation's commitment to investing in the establishment of this revolutionary clinical trial in Australia, and we look forward to the prospect of better outcomes that it offers. And what a foundation we all support. Since being established, its work and the generosity of donors has been truly extraordinary, with $11 million committed in the past 9 months alone to support innovative research and clinical trials like GBM Agile, as well as supporting talented researchers and global collaborations to reduce the siloed research and to connect Australia with leading research worldwide. To all donors joining online tonight, thank you for your generous contributions. And congratulations to Mr. Kawaguchi and the Foundation's leadership for your resolute commitment to achieve maximum impact for the brain cancer community. And Dennis and I can't wait to see what comes next and to share in these wonderful advances together with you all.
Thank you to Her Excellency and Mr. Dennis Wilson, who together have been our joint patrons for a number of years. We commend them for their tireless support and commitment to this cause. At the core of our mission is a laser focus on rapidly increasing brain cancer survival and improving the quality of life of people impacted by brain cancer. Everything we do is driven by our desire to reflect the urgency and courage of our community. To remind us why this mission is so critical, I'd like to share with you a video of Jess sharing her personal experience of living with glioblastoma as a young adult and how it has affected her and those close to her.
Hi, my name is Jessica Gitze. I was diagnosed with glioblastoma 3 years ago when I was 21 years old. In 2018, I was living in America working at Disney World, and I started to get really sick there. So when I came home in 2019, I went to the doctor and she sent me to hospital for an MRI, and it was then a few days later that I found out that I had stage 4 brain cancer. When I first started getting sick in America, it didn't even cross my mind that it could be cancer. I thought I was just a bit tired or a bit overworked, and I was excited to come home and settle back into being home in Perth. It wasn't until we went to the GP and she sent me for an MRI that I realised how serious it could be. I was in hospital for 10 days. I had surgery to insert a shunt and take a biopsy of the tumour. And then I was told later that it was stage 4 glioblastoma. My family, my parents and my partner were there, and we all just cried, really. There's nothing we could do except start treatment. And once all my scars had healed, I started 6 weeks of radiation and a low dose of chemo, and I've been on medication ever since then. Before my diagnosis, I didn't know much at all about brain cancer. I think typically cancer is portrayed in media as people being really skinny and thin and losing their hair, and I was the complete opposite. I haven't lost my hair through my treatment. In fact, I've gained weight as well through the steroids. So that was a bit of a shock and a bit of an adjustment, and I think it's a reality that not many people see. There are a lot of physical and mental changes, especially with brain cancer. My capacity to think isn't as great as it used to be. My body's not able to do as much, and I've got more limits on myself, and it's really hard trying to be your best self and push yourself, but also not too much, and make sure you're managing your symptoms as well. I typically take one day at a time and just see how I'm feeling and see what I can do and plan for the next week rather than the next month or 6 months. That's a bit far in advance with brain cancer, so I just take one day at a time and don't take it for granted. It does mess with your head a little bit. Some days you think you're fine, and then the next day you find out that it's come back more aggressive, and especially when you have scans and you go to appointments hoping for the best news, and unfortunately sometimes you get the worst news that it has spread even more. So on May the 20th last year, I was cooking in the kitchen and I started feeling really sick, and my head started feeling very foggy. So my husband came to check on me, and I went to tell him what was wrong, and I just physically couldn't speak. I was having trouble forming my words, and it was quite scary for both of us. I was trying to tell him like I'm okay, but I couldn't communicate that, so he was panicking quite a bit. We went to ED, and they did a CT scan that night, and they didn't find anything, so they thought it was just a severe migraine. And then I let my doctor know. He booked me in for an MRI, and they found a second tumour under the original one. From there, we had planned to do some more radiation on that, and when they were planning the radiation, they found another small blip, which caused them to check my spine, and that's when they found tumours all down my spine as well. So what had happened is there was a bit of cancer that had broken away from the original tumour, and that's gone down my spinal fluid, and they've just lodged all down my spine now. Well, I think for me, I'm very lucky to have a very good support system around me. I know a lot of people don't have that, and so I try not to take it for granted. And even on the days where I don't want to get out of bed for myself, I'm I need to get up and I need to give it my best shot. And I'm not like this 100% of the time, but I definitely have my moments. But I don't know, life's too good, and I don't want to take it for granted. If I only have a short time, then I want to make sure it's a good time. Good news about this was that when we found out the news, my partner and I decided to get married. So on August 14th, we got married after 6.5 years together. So that was very exciting. We put the wedding together super quick, and it was perfect. I wouldn't change a thing, so it's not all bad. So the statistics for brain cancer aren't great, so assuming I don't have long to live, I want it to mean something. I want to leave something behind that my family are proud of. I want it to be more, not that cancer killed her, it's more I had cancer, but look what I did with it. And it's more fuel for me. I don't want to just have cancer. I want it to mean something, and I want it to, even if we can't help myself, hopefully raise enough money to hopefully find a cure eventually and help other people. And that's the legacy I'll leave behind, and that's for my family as well. When the statistics are mostly 12-month survival rate, and I'm here 3 years later, it's a strange sort of privilege to still be here and represent those that aren't as fortunate as me, and I just want to bring as much awareness to it as possible and help as many people as I can. So I can't put into words how lucky I feel that people put effort and energy into raising money for cure brain cancer. It's something that's literally life-changing potentially for me and for many others. So I feel very, very grateful and humble for that. I love the sense of community that the fundraising brings as well. It's like our own family, and we're all here to support each other, which is a really nice feeling. Last year was my 3rd year walking in the Walk for Brain Cancer, hoping to raise funds for research, advocacy and awareness. I'm very lucky to still be well enough to be able to walk in these and get many people around me rallying around and walking around Langley Park in Perth, 5 kilometres each year. So far we've raised over $30,000 as well, which I'm very proud of. For many years now, my family's participated in some aspect with the Rottnest Channel Swim here in Perth. And this year my family has entered a team as a charity team to raise money for Cure Brain Cancer Foundation. So we're hoping to raise $10,000 to go towards the Cure Brain Cancer Foundation to hopefully find a cure for myself and others.
Thank you, Jess, for your courage and willingness to share your very personal experience. It is stories such as yours that reminds us the realities of brain cancer and highlight the urgency to invest in innovative treatments to ultimately help find a cure. I'd like to remind you all to please send any questions you have for Jess through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And now it's time to chat with our special guests. Please keep your questions flowing through, and we'll get to as many as we can. The first question I'd like to direct to Hugh. Hugh, I want to start with a question that often is asked of me. Why glioblastoma research, and why is it important to invest in this particular form of brain cancer?
Thanks, Lance. Yeah, so I think that obviously, brain cancer is a rare cancer, but one that, as Jess alluded to, the statistics are not great, although there's a wide variation. But I think the most important to be said is that although there's been research and we've not made an impact on improvement now for 30 odd years. So we do need more resources to do more research so that we can make an improvement and find a cure. And as a niche cancer, it's been a little neglected to now, but we can reverse that. So that's why we need to focus more on it.
Great. No, thank you so much. The next question I'm going to direct to Mark. Mark, we haven't seen much progress in survival rates for many years in brain cancer. What are some of the challenges faced, and how is research working to overcome these challenges?
Thanks, Lance. And look, an absolute pleasure and delight to be here. And I'm getting older, and I've been doing it for a long time, but I'm touched by that video of Jess. I think it just says everything. Brain cancer is a tough cancer. It's incredibly tough for the patient, people like Jess. It's incredibly tough for their carers, her husband, her family. It's very tough to look after as an individual, myself and we've been doing it for a long time, and it's a really tough cancer to treat. Don't really know why. Other cancers, particularly in the last 5 or 10 years, we've seen incredible advances, immunotherapy in melanoma and all sorts of cancers. But brain cancer, it's very hard to look after. We are getting better and better and better at looking after our patients and looking after the carers as well. And we are trying really hard. I think the optimistic view, which is what I have, is that the funding for research, that is laboratory research and clinical trials, has increased substantially, notwithstanding the contribution from Cure Brain Cancer Foundation. But generally speaking, the funding has increased dramatically. Our understanding of the basic biology, the laboratory work that's being done, that's improved dramatically. And we have a much, much better understanding of the biology of brain cancer. Why does it happen? How does it grow? How should we treat it? Why won't it respond to treatment? I think we, in the brain cancer community, in the medical community, in the scientific community, have terrific collaborations. So there are organisations within Australia that bring us together, and we also have excellent international collaborations so that we can learn from others. We don't make the same mistakes. We leverage off the expertise and experience of those around us, and hopefully do better and better as time goes on. And I think what GBM Agile, which is what we're talking about today, demonstrates is we can be much cleverer in how we do our work. So the point about GBM Agile, which I'm sure we'll come to, is that it's a clever trial. It's not magic, but it's a clever trial. And doing things in a faster, cleverer way is what this is all about.
Thank you very much, Mark. If I can come back to you, can you tell us a bit more about what GBM Agile actually is?
So GBM Agile really is a much more clever and efficient way of doing clinical trials, which is what we need. It's very novel, it's very sophisticated, it's using absolutely cutting-edge statistical design so that we can really make an improvement. And the key things is that the statistical design here allows us to do several things. We can help patients with both newly diagnosed and the recurrent with brain tumors. But the other thing is that we can test multiple drugs at the same time. So we're really going to speed things up, right? We can be very sophisticated with testing different subgroups of patients who have brain tumors. And the data that we get is not only just quicker, but it's of extremely high quality and more sophisticated than we had before. So it's just a really, really clever, sophisticated new design that lets us do drug development much more efficiently.
Next question I'm going to direct to both of you. Both of you have extensive experience with clinical trials. Can you talk a little bit about what is so exciting about GBM Agile? How is it different from traditional trials? And I'll start with you, Mark.
Look, Lance, traditionally, we might have a trial with 1,000 patients testing a new drug in comparison to an old drug. And at the end of the 1,000 patients, you might get an answer. And unfortunately, in brain cancer, the answer has always been, it's no better. So what GBM Agile does is it rapidly tests a drug in a small number of patients. And what it can do is identify potential winners that then go on to further study. And just as important, it identifies the duds, the drugs that aren't going to work, and we can throw them in the rubbish bin. So it's twofold. It's identifying rapidly and effectively in a relatively small numbers of patients, the drugs that might be good to pursue and the drugs that aren't. So we're not treating lots of patients with drugs that eventually are demonstrated not to work. In a way, it's like any other trial. It's just cleverer and quicker, more efficient, great for our patients. What it will bring to Australian brain cancer patients and their carers is some hope and optimism and opportunity to be involved in clinical trials that offer novel therapies that are being tested in a clever way.
Did you want to add anything to that?
I think for me, you really get bang for your buck with GBM Agile. You can open the GBM Agile and you can treat a whole range of people with a whole range of drugs. It's really giving access and opportunity for people to try something, especially if this tumor is starting to progress.
And if I could just follow up on that, GBM Agile is considered an adaptive trial. What does that actually mean? And why is that beneficial to patients?
I think Mark has touched on this before. The older way of doing it, you had to treat a lot of people before you even got a hint of what was happening. And this meant that sometimes you were treating people who weren't going to benefit. The trial is that it's very clever. It's using every scrap of information that you get to put it back in the real time, so that the ones that have potential, you're really accelerating the ones that are duds, you get rid of them straight away. So people who are going on are getting the best chance of being treated with the best drug for them. And so it's really just very much more efficient. I know if I had a GBM, I'd want to be on Agile.
How does a drug progress from a clinical trial into standard of care for patients? And how long does that process normally take?
So look, it's a very slow process. It's got a lot quicker. I mean, we're talking, drugs have to be demonstrated in the laboratory to be worthwhile and potentially effective. It then has to be tested to make sure it's safe and not causing side effects. It then gets expanded into another trial with a larger number of patients, and then it will be into a larger trial again with 500, 1,000 patients testing against standard of care. And all of that takes 10 years, 12 years. It's incredibly expensive, $2 billion. And what GBM Agile is going to try and do is speed that process up.
The next question, if I could go to you, Jess. This is a very personal discussion for you. What has the reaction been to GBM Agile?
Hi, Lance. Thanks so much for having me. I think just a lot of hope, really. I think for me personally, 3 years down the track, I'm on my 3rd type of treatment now. And the one I'm currently on actually did come about from trials and research. So there's always hope. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for the support and the funding. And I hope that something positive comes from it.
Jess, if I could just follow up on the question, how have you managed the mental health aspect of diagnosis? I can't help but be struck by the strength and courage in sharing your personal story. So how did you come to the point where you were determined to use your own experience to raise awareness and support for brain cancer?
But that's definitely something that's been a bit of a process and a journey. I think fundamentally for me, I'm very lucky to have my family around me, and I have a brilliant husband and my own family and his family, and I'm very grateful for that because I know not everyone has that. And yeah, like I said, it's so fundamental in my mental health, physically, even getting around. But also things like participating in these events and volunteering and giving back and hopefully contributing something. If I haven't got a long time to live, I hope it's a good time and it actually means something.
Let's take a pause of our discussion here and bring in some questions from the audience. I can see we received quite a bit of questions. I'm just going to grab our trusty iPad here. The first question is, okay, I got to figure out how to use it. How can someone with GBM get access to this trial, and when will it be available? Mark, do you mind answering this one?
The whole process of opening a trial takes some time, and I'm talking 6 to 9 months even. So, it has to come to Australia in terms of the actual protocol. There has to be decisions about how the trial will be run in Australia. There have to be decisions made through an ethics committee. We all believe that this is an ethical trial, but it has to be reviewed independently by our ethics committees. It won't be open at every site in every state, in every town. It will be open, I suspect, with a site in almost every state and every capital city. That would be what I would be recommending. There are other clinical trials running throughout Australia. And the trick, I think, is simply to say to your medical oncologist, the doctor looking after you or your family member, are there any trials available to me today? And there may or may not be. Is GBM Agile open yet? No, it's not. I think it's going to open in about 4 months. Are you opening the trial at your centre? No, I'm not, but I know that Pui Gan is, and I will refer you to Pui. So there's a collaboration and a camaraderie amongst the medical oncologists around Australia to ensure that if a trial's open and a patient's interested in the trial, we will give them access to it through our networks.
Great, thank you, Mark. The next question is another question. I'm going to direct this to you, Wee. Do I have to pay to be part of clinical trials in Australia like GBM Agile?
No, Lance. So there's a very strong ethos in Australia that you should be able to access the trial without having to pay for it. So the answer to that is no, you won't have to pay.
A few questions are coming through around whether diet matters. For example, the ketogenic diet and supplements. Mark, I'm going to pass this one to you. Any comments on that?
Yes. Don't know that I really want to say it. So diet and exercise, terrific. and we think that exercise at least can benefit patients. A good diet, a good healthy diet is good for you. Is there any evidence that the keto diet makes a difference? The answer is no. And for a lot of patients, it's a pretty miserable diet. So I don't recommend it. I'm fine if patients want to have or try and experience the keto diet. For GBM Agile, it's going to be medicines primarily. So it will be, I've seen some of the other questions. It'll be new drugs, chemotherapies, immunotherapies, perhaps. At the moment, there are a couple of drugs that are being tested in GBM Agile, but the intent is that that builds up and up and up, and over time there'll be drugs dropping out, drugs coming in. It's possible that we will do trials of other modalities, but at the moment, GBM Agile is very much intended for chemotherapy drugs, targeting agents, immunotherapies.
The next question is for Jess. Jess, what has been your support during your whole journey, and what gets you up every day?
There are definitely days when I don't want to get up, and I could easily sleep the day away. Instead, I just move to the couch at least, get up, start my day, and just take care of myself. And it's really a day-to-day sort of process. I've learned to accept that I'm not the average 20-something-year-old, and I definitely can't do what I used to do. And I don't want to say I've lowered my expectations, but I've changed my expectations of myself and try not to be too hard on myself on those days where I can't do anything, because I think at the end of it, I need to be my first priority, and I need to take care of myself, because that then makes my family better, if that makes sense. I don't know. I hope I answered the question.
Oh, that was perfect. Thank you so much. Next question is for you, Wee. Would the treatments on GBM Agile be in addition to radiation and chemotherapy, or are they instead of?
GBM Agile is quite a complicated trial, and there are different arms that are targeting different groups of people. So I think, and it's constantly evolving as well. So I think that there's a range of options there, but I think predominantly it will be testing the drugs by themselves. But I think that may well change.
I encourage, if anybody has any other questions, please send it through. Okay, we have one for you, Mark. Does GBM Agile have an entry criteria to participate?
Every trial has entry criteria, but it's obviously made for patients who have glioblastoma in particular. There'll be an age, you've probably got to have to be over 18. You have to have glioblastoma. You have to be at a certain stage in your disease. You have to have normal kidney function and liver function. They're all pretty straightforward. You have to be well enough. So we know that treating patients who, let's say, are bedbound or very, very sick, that being on a trial is not appropriate. The treatments can actually cause more harm than good. So there'll be a list of maybe 20 criteria to get onto the trial. There'll be a list of 20 criteria that says you can't go on the trial. In general, if you are reasonably well, then you have the opportunity to go on to GBM Agile.
Next one is a question for Wee. GBM Agile is already open overseas. Does this mean all users are collaborating and sharing results on this trial?
Yeah, so I think that all the patients on the trial, all the centers are putting all the data in that they're getting every day from each patient into the GBM Agile. And so it's collecting data about who's doing well, if some people are having side effects and things like that. And that's all going in. And I think I mentioned that data is being incorporated on a daily basis. And that data is being shared. And that's the basis of why GBM Agile is a sort of a faster, much more efficient platform. So whilst probably people are not, talking to each other, emailing, all that data is going into the GBM Agile platform and being used, in a real-time way.
Next question is, Mark, do you think we'll ever find a cure for brain cancer?
I said at the start, it's a very difficult cancer to treat. It's very difficult for everyone involved. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, did I think we would see a cure for melanoma? I would say no way. I looked after melanoma for many years, incurable. And now with the immunotherapies and some of the new drugs, patients are clearly cured. So you know, I'm very reluctant to predict. I've been doing it for 25 years. I've seen patients live a long time. I've seen an occasional patient who must be cured. That's not the norm, but I'm a very optimistic person. And I've seen how in other cancers, we have changed the natural history from incurable to curable. That hasn't happened yet in brain cancers, but I'm optimistic that in the next few years, things will change.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Jess, this question is for you. What would you say to someone who's just been diagnosed with brain cancer, and what advice would you give them?
That's a tough one, I think, because everyone takes it in and deals with it so personally, and there's no right or wrong way, of course. So I think, firstly, just take time for yourself with your loved ones and let it soak in. I know for me, I had to wait until my scars had healed before I could start radiation. So my family and I took some time out, spent time together. It was also quite dire at the start. We didn't know how things were going to go, but definitely take care of yourself and your loved ones first. And then I don't know, you just got to show up, don't you, and do the work and go through the treatment and just do your best. And I think that's all anyone can ever ask of you, is just you show up and you do your best. And some days that might not be the same as others. And yeah, some days better than others, and just take care of yourself and do your best to be happy, I suppose.
The next question is for we. How does GBM Agile decide what drugs to be included in the trials?
So I think that with the GBM Agile, there's obviously a process by which drugs are selected. I think from what I understand, it's a complicated process that involves a lot of discussion and negotiation between GBM Agile and the people who produce the drugs and the scientists and the doctors. And from that, I think that, where there's an agreement that the GBM Agile is the best way for the drugs to be tested for the reasons that we've discussed, then it will be carefully incorporated into the GBM Agile. And that's quite a lot of work to do. It's got to be done appropriately. But then from there, once the drug is agreed to go on, it will be entered into the design. We'll do it in a way that you get the best data and the best outcomes, and also to protect, to make sure patients are safe on the trial. So, it's a process. It's a complicated process, but a very careful and sophisticated process.
This next question is for Mark. Mark, is GBM Agile open in other countries?
Yes, definitely open in the US. I think open in Canada, so North America, definitely. The intent was always to open it in Australia. So I'm going back to 2013, I think, was when I went to the first meeting for GBM Agile. And at that time, it was going to be North America, Australia, and China. So that was the intent back then. It's taken a long time for GBM Agile to actually open at all in the States. It's building up significant momentum at some of the very biggest and best cancer centers in the States and in Canada. And now, I think it's thrilling that we will be launching GBM Agile in the near future. And Lance, you might know better than me, but the intent was definitely to go to China. It's certainly looking to go to Europe as well. So this will become a sort of a key international clinical trial.
What advice would you have to someone who wants to pursue neuro-oncology?
I would say to definitely do it, because we need people who are enthusiastic and invested in it. But my own experience that it's been an incredibly rich and rewarding experience. And I think Mark has said before, I get up every day, go and see the patient, and it's not work to me. I don't dread going to work. I think it's very rewarding, and we need more good people to go in it. So I would say, absolutely go for it.
Mark, another one for you. Can you tell us about immunotherapy? What is it, and is it part of GBM Agile?
So immune therapy, there's a variety of different immune therapies, and they've been around really for 100 years or more. They're different ways of trying to utilize the patient's immune system to attack the cancer. So that's a normal response. In many cancers, the cancers are too clever for the body's immune system. But we've learned through basic science, laboratory science, that there are cancers where we can turn the immune system back on. And as I've alluded to a couple of times, in melanoma, in kidney cancer, in bladder cancer, in breast cancer, bowel cancer, etc., the immune system can be harnessed to attack the cancer. And it's worked brilliantly, as I've said before, changed incurable cancers into curable cancers. For a variety of pretty well understood reasons now, the immune therapies that we've been using for other cancers do not work in brain cancer. We need to understand that better. At the moment, I think there are many strategies to try and harness the immune system in a different way to attack brain cancers. Ultimately, yeah, I'm sure there will be immune treatments that become part of the GBM Agile strategy.
Will GBM Agile be a trial in perpetuity, or will this be a time-limited trial?
So I think that, GBM Agile can absolutely be a trial in perpetuity, and I think that is the intent. It is my own belief that it will be a trial in perpetuity, but really the only thing that, the main thing that we need to keep it going is, I guess, to have enough funding for it, to do that, and to have enough drugs to put into GBM Agile. But I think that, I think I saw one of the other questions. I think the advantages of Agile are becoming much more apparent, and more companies are wanting to test through Agile. And I know that certainly Agile has recently added some drugs, including one that I think is an immunotherapy. So I think so long as we, as we can all work together to make sure there's enough funding and there's enough drugs, then this will be something that will help people, I think, indefinitely, until we cure it.
Exactly. Thank you, Lee. Mark, another question for you. What excites you most about research in brain cancer right now? And what is the pipeline for the future?
What excites me is the collaboration, the basic research that's being done in laboratories, not just overseas, but in Australian laboratories. Our understanding of brain cancer has increased phenomenally over the last 5 years. And our pipeline of new treatments has increased significantly as well. I think we're also much better at caring for our patients and the carers of those patients. That's improved significantly over the last 10 years or so. But in terms of research, yeah, I think we're on the cusp of changing the disease.
Okay, great. This next question is for Wee, back to Wee. Will we see trials like GBM Agile for other types of brain cancer, which are not GBM?
I think we will. I think that what will happen, GBM Agile has really paved the way. It's a sea change, but not necessarily. It's complex. But I think that given the advantages of a trial like Agile and the fact that some of the other groups of brain cancers are smaller numerically, we are going to need to be doing this in a more sophisticated way. And there are other initiatives already about doing much more sophisticated, complex trials. But, it is my own belief that there will be GBM Agile-like trials in other types of brain tumors, but probably rarer ones as well. And it's already being used in some other cancer types. So I think it will become common. We will become, we will see more of it.
Another question for you, Mark. Is there any research into how to prevent brain cancers? And do we know what causes brain cancer?
That's a good question. No, we don't. Radiation can cause brain cancer. I'm talking about patients who've had radiation when they were younger for another cancer, perhaps, that can cause it. Rarely it's hereditary, almost never, but that can happen. But in fact, there's been a lot of research about the causes of brain cancer, and unlike many other cancers, there's no obvious reason. So I tell my patients, there's no obvious reason why you got brain cancer. It's not that you did something or didn't do something you ate or didn't eat, there's no good reason.
Another question for you. How do you balance work with your own life? Do you have any recommendations for doctors in training?
Okay. I'm not sure I balance it that well myself, to be perfectly honest. But I do enjoy my work, and I do have some balance. It helps, as Jessica says, to have supportive family and friends. But I think the key thing is if you enjoy what you do, then work-life balance isn't such an issue. I think your second part was about training.
Recommendations for doctors in training.
I think my recommendation to them is always don't overthink it and do what you really enjoy, and it will all be fine. I actually say that to all the trainees that I work with.
Mark, another question for you. With your full workload, how do you unwind? And I promise you, I'm not choosing these questions. I have no idea who's sending it in.
I've learned to turn off. I love what I do. I love my Monday morning brain cancer clinic. I love seeing the patients. Sometimes it's brilliant. We laugh and laugh about things. Sometimes it's dreadful. There are tears. I've got a huge collection of Kleenex. Sometimes I even shout out, urgent Kleenex required. You know, it's a privilege. It's a pleasure. It makes me understand the vagaries of life, that life is capricious. I get all of that. I mean, Jess is a perfect example. But I turn off. I've learned how to. So, you know, I love music, all sorts, from country and western to opera. I go dancing, swing dancing. I travel a bit. You know, I've got children in their 20s who, you know, are bloody hard work. So I don't know. I love what I do, but I'm able to live a life as well.
Okay, great. And the last question is actually from someone named Gavin. How can I support GBM Agile? And for this one, I can answer that. So running concurrently with GBM Agile is our 3-year capital campaign to get as many people rallying behind this initiative as possible. You can support the campaign in various ways. You can either donate directly via our website, curebraincancer.org.au/GBM Agile, or you can email us at info@curebraincancer.org.au, and we'll get in touch with you to discuss which way is the best way that'll suit you. You can also get your company or organization involved as a corporate partner, and you can help us spread the word to as many people as possible. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions tonight. Thank you once again to our special guests for sharing their expertise and personal insights with us tonight. I want to remind everyone that we'll be sharing many more exciting developments over the coming months as we continue to roll GBM Agile in Australia. I ask you to please support this initiative in whatever way you can, whether that's donating toward the project, or perhaps you can get your company on board and help spread the word. Every contribution, big or small, will go a long way. And once again, you can visit our website at curebraincancer.org.au/GBM Agile, or email us at info@curebraincancer.org.au, and we'll get in touch with you. Thank you again to every single one of you for joining us tonight and for your incredible support. We're excited about this important first step for GBM Agile in Australia and look forward to continuing to share progress with you as we quickly move forward to bring it to fruition. Thank you and good night.